Hey y'all, hair looks wild. I just cut the grass. This one, sitting in a tree. I'm not very high up though, I'm like 2 foot off the ground. But I'm in a tree nonetheless. Yeah, it's good to do sometimes. Just sit in a tree. You know, I found it's very easy to overlook what we feel called to do and trust ourselves. Very easy. All the noise and the fuss of the world, all our programming, I look at it as like, harmonic inertia. I've really come to frame it as just that, and it's like the left and right hemispheres of the brain. It's like the harmonic inertia and the luciferic impulse, and there's a balance in that middle way, uniting those hemispheres, and that's where that true trust and transformation comes from, because you don't need to escape either or. It's both is being embraced and recontextualized through the Christic. That is your essence. That is your God-given inheritance. You are. You are. You know what that means, and that's enough. But we often don't know what that means here. What does that mean to actually be here, to be blessed with life as a son and daughter of God, as something that the very all of creation has ordained to exist? Yeah, as I say that, there's thunder rumbling, and there's no, I guess the dark clouds are over there, but yeah, that's great. There's been a lot of that lately. A lot of the lightning and the thunder at the appropriate times. And you'll find you get to that place where everything, you're already there, but it's so easy to tune it out, that everything is either confirming, well, it's confirming whatever you want it to confirm, really, is the truth of it. And that's coming from your identification, your chosen level of identification with what you think you are. And whether you think you're limited to just this life and this body and this world of form and what you can see and touch and feel, or whether you're willing to go within and open up to that connection with all that is beyond that. Because make no mistake, you are beyond that. And that's where your freedom lies. It no longer becomes about whether this body is gonna, be or not be, what level of time you'll continue to experience in this domain. It's that willingness to step in and take your part, find your place, and be you, and allow the Spirit to express through you in the ways that are uniquely you. Because you were before all this. You will be after all of this. Whatever this is for you, you're not limited to it. Those ideas of limitation, fragmentation, separation, those are fear thoughts, those are doubt thoughts, those are illusion. And those are aspects of self that have to be integrated. I've went through the deepest. I never imagined I would go through some of the purification that I went through over the past couple of weeks. I thought I was way, way past any of this level of fear, and it wasn't, I was stable with it, but the the depths that the mind tried to go to. And Hawkins used to talk about it, how when you get to it and then you really choose to look at it and see that all fear is associated with the death of the body, because that's the case. It's what, and he used to talk about the and then what technique. And then what? And then what? Well, you keep going, and then what? It's the fear of non-existence, the fear of this body dropping, and having to start over, lose, whatever. It comes back to that. But can you look on all that? You can. That's what I found, is like there's so much capacity for delay in putting that off, because we don't want to look at those fears. But when we don't do that, we remain unconscious. We remain in the programming of the fallen world. You remain subject to manipulation, to forces and entities and thought forms that are not your true self, that do not have the best interest of the all of what you are, of what everyone is in truth in mind. But make no mistake, that is a choice that you're making in your mind, always and in all ways. So the choice is always there to choose again, to be willing to choose that and say, okay, I'll look at this. That little willingness that I find myself going back to the how the Course in Miracles frames it and the metaphysics there, because it is so complete in its own way. Now, it does have I found there is a great capacity for the ego to get in and to get into unconscious gridlocks of like apathy and non-participation prematurely. And that's a grave little error. But I found that it's a place that everybody has to go through. That's actually one of the like the 7 deadly sins. I think that there was originally 8. The Greek guy, and apathy was one that was removed, because that is like the greatest disservice that you can step into for yourself and for all, is this place of apathetic checkout and not wanting to participate and not wanting to step into the truth of your potential as a co-creator. You are a co-creator, right? You cannot, you can choose to give that right up, but then guess what? There's somebody else that's going to. There's something else that's taking over for you and is going to create in a way that is not the same capacity that you have, that is not the level of truth and depth that you carry. And make no mistake, we need you. I need you. I want you participating. I want you stepping into the truth of you. I want you to know your power and magnitude. That is shared, guys. And all of everything out there, and even this, it's like you sit here and scroll, and it's programming. It's all programming, and what you're choosing to take in. If the fear behind that's not processed, then that's what's being put back out into the world. So by your unwillingness to hold that in love, by your own willingness to forgive, you're choosing delay. You're choosing to say, no, this isn't my responsibility. I'll try to put this off somewhere else in time, on somebody else in time, and keep that projection going. And that's not what we want. We want the truth. We want forgiveness. We want the magnitude of the kingdom, and that to be able to be manifest here. And that doesn't mean that everybody's going to step into that. That doesn't mean that, oh no, there's not going to be what seems to be, this separation and this fear and whatever. But you were called to hold the miracle as a miracle worker, however you identify. If you're watching this, that's what you're called to be. You're called to step into your Christed potential and hold the miracle. Hold the truth within you and allow that to express through you, right? And that looks different for everybody. I don't know what that looks like for you. I don't know how that expresses through you, because you have your own very unique cultural and geographical preferences. And that's an interesting thing to go into, is a lot of people get into that judgment of self-preference and who they are in truth. And this is largely related to like the inner child and how that gets covered up. And oftentimes, as we trace back and go back through these forgiveness lessons, we're seeing how we stop being ourselves out of this fear and safety ideas to fit in and be small, and thinking that that's going to give us comfort and safety and a level of freedom. But it doesn't. It gives us insecurity, self-doubt, and bondage. I'm spitting a lot. It's my self-expression right now. I don't know what to tell you. Nah, I got a little pouch in, but something usually doesn't make me do that, but whatever. So I don't know what that looks like for you. I know internally, how that's going to show up and feel, and I think that we all kind of ride that in the same way. But trust yourself, trust the process, trust what's showing up in your experience, trust the people that are still, coming up in your experience, that have, these lessons per se to teach you about yourself, about who you're actually willing to be today. If you're still gonna bow, if you're still gonna be small, if you're still gonna try to fit in the safety of parameters of certain systems, to not be you. And make no mistake, I'm not saying that you're not gonna have to participate in certain systems still, but it's the way that you are with it. It's the relationship that you have with yourself and the all throughout that. I've got a weird flow right now and things that happen, that I'm kind of having to do certain things that I don't necessarily want to do, that I don't think are necessary expressions of my highest self. But I'm trusting that whatever, I'll have these opportunities to express the truth throughout that, and hold the miracle. Maybe it won't be what it seems to be, but it is what it is. And in the meanwhile, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna hold that truth. I'm gonna speak that truth, because I know that that's what I am. That's what you are. That's what you're called to be, whether you see that and feel that in the truth and sincerity and the depth that it really is. All these things, that these high levels of truth that we've heard as children. You go to church and they say, Jesus said, these things you shall do in greater. And then it gets out the window. What's with that? What's with that? Why do we stop letting the children be themselves? Why do we try to make them conform to the same systems that have led us into degrees of unhappiness and unfulfillment? It's so sad. So as a society, we're called at this time to step into greater, to step into the depths of truth and magnitude that in our hearts we know we and all are worthy of. Because make no mistake, you are worthy. You're worthy and you're loved. You wouldn't be here. You would not have an existence if that was not the case. You are not an accident. Your very existence was ordained by the Most High. What you choose to do with that is your choice. Always. So choose again. Choose wisely. Choose love. Choose life. Choose truth. Or don't, the choice is yours at the end of the day. But I know what I want to choose. I love y'all. I think I'm going to go play with my bonsai trees and wire up some trees and maybe clean up the house a little bit. It's dirty. So until next time, my friends, peace and love. Bye.